And here we go. Welcome. Thank you so much for investing your time, investing your energy on joining me this evening. We're here to talk about anger. What a great topic, hey, for a Thursday evening. Anger. Why anger management often doesn't work. Does everyone here work in anger management? Could you just put yes or no? If you work in, do you work in anger management? No, yes, no, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, 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 yes. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michelle, yes. All right, if you work in anger management, this could be life-changing for you and for your clients. If you don't work in anger management, this could be life-changing for you and your clients. So whether you are currently, thanks Lalian, you said you used to work in juvenile detention, big job. Anger impacts everybody. We're going to get right into it in a moment, but let me first of all start by saying that just a little bit of housekeeping. Could you please, if you have a question as we go along, could you please keep it, write it on a pad in front of you and keep it until the last 20 minutes or so of the call, which is when I'll call for questions. That way, your questions will be at the end of the chat and I'll be able to see them. They won't be right back through everything. Can you also not chat with each other? Because that's really distracting as I'm presenting. Thanks very much. You'll receive a recording or a link to a recording of this call tomorrow. So you'll be able to go back through some of it. All right, so anger management, and who am I? And who am I to speak about anger? Thanks, Linda. Hi, I'm Judith Richards. I'm the creator of TRTP, or the Richards Trauma Process. I created that process out of my own lived experience. So I had a history of extreme violence. I've dealt with a lot of angry people. I've been victim to a lot of angry people, and I ended up with my own anger issue, a rage issue. I used to say, I want to let go of it, meaning my rage, this out of control rage, but it won't let go of me. And we'll talk more about that. But because of my experience through trauma, so I grew up Catholic. There were lots of priests who used to come around the house. There were lots of children. I'm the youngest of 8. I had lots of events with various priests who used to stay at our house. I was sexually abused by a Catholic nun when I was 14, 15. I worked my way up through the world of violent lunatics, stalkers, partners, until I found myself with a homicidal psychopath who was into torture, and that went on with some pretty extreme violence for 9 years. At the end of that, I eventually just went down the rabbit hole of extreme PTSD and a number of other very severe mental health issues. And rage was the most difficult symptom, besides all the living in hallucinations, etc. That was a bit tricky as well, but the rage was the most difficult issue for me to live with, and for anybody who happened to be living with me to live with. We're going to be talking about, there's all different types of anger, isn't there? There's all different types of anger. We're going to be talking about the 2 major groups of anger. The 2 major groups, what are they? There's the slow burn of frustration, irritation, resentment. We've all experienced it, haven't we? And sometimes that can erupt in an explosion of anger. There's another type. That's a slow burn type. It gradually builds up, doesn't it? There's another type of anger, and that is the anger of trauma, the rage of trauma. And that's a very different beast. The rage of trauma has no build-up. And this is what separates it from other anger. And we are going to focus on this rage of trauma. There is no build-up to the rage of trauma. There's not that increasing irritation, increasing frustration, that slow burn of the slow burn of resentment that builds up and builds up. No, with the rage of trauma, it's bang, 0 to 1,000 miles an hour in a nanosecond, and it can come from nowhere. And this, everyone, this is why anger management often doesn't work, because often the people in front of us who we're trying to assist in managing their anger can't use the techniques that we give them. Can't observe that, oh yes, I'm starting to get angry. I'm starting to sweat. I'm starting to clench my jaw, my fists. So therefore I need to step away and I need to do this and I need to breathe and I need to do my mindfulness. That's great for the slow burn of resentment, frustration, irritation. No problem with that. But when you're dealing with the rage of trauma, this is a very, very, very different beast. It's like a lit match at petrol. Bang, it comes from nowhere. There is no build up there. You can't see it coming. You don't know it's coming. Often it can be the tiniest trigger. And often there's no trigger. None. I remember driving along the motorway by myself with good music on, singing. And then bang, like a nuclear explosion within me. And this rage, like a firestorm, like a nuclear explosion, bang, raced through my body. My foot went to the floor on the accelerator. I was screaming at the top of my voice. The rage from nowhere. No build up. Didn't see it coming. Not even a trigger. Often there are triggers and it can be a little thing. But why does that happen? I used to specialize, when I was seeing clients, I used to specialize in violent, angry men brought against their will. We know all about these, don't we? The people we read about in the paper, the people we see on the news. These men were brought against their will, generally having been pulled off trying to kill their ex. I'm thinking particularly, I mean, what first comes to mind is Jason. I'm allowed to tell Jason's story. He's given full permission because he wants to help people. So Jason was one morning, and it was a Monday, as I remember, which is, don't really need to know that, do we? But on a Monday morning, he went to his ex-wife's house. He smashed every window in her house, every panel and window in her car, broke her guitar over his head, and then set about strangling her. The men folk in his family found him in time and pulled him off his ex, and some hours later brought him to me. He was not compliant. These guys would sit there sweating and shaking with rage, and there is a stink of homicidal rage. There's a particular scent. Jason would be said to have the rage problem. He had a hair trigger. If anyone even looked at him the wrong way, he would go off. What I found with all of these men, with each of them, is that they had a horrendous early childhood trauma history. And Jason's was horrendous. At the end of our session, it was a long session. It was about 2.5 hours. At the end of that time, he and everyone in his life was safe. How do you do that? That was 9 years ago, and Jason is in touch with me about every 6 months just to thank me for the work we did back then. We had more than one session. We had a couple of sessions. Jason in 9 years has not had one rage episode. Not because he's learned to manage the rage. No. He doesn't have it. He has the slow burn of irritation and frustration and all the normal human stuff, but that extraordinary off the planet, bang, rage, no, not once. Not because he's on meds, not because he knows what to do with it. No, it's just disappeared. In order to understand, how can that happen? How can you just take away the rage like that? In order for that to happen, we have to understand something. Hurt people. Take away the hurt, they stop hurting people, unless they're psychopaths. But in order to understand how can you just turn off the rage like that, we have to understand the physiology of trauma. So let's go there. I'm going to share screen here. I'm going to share the whiteboard, and I'm going to endeavour to do something here. We're going to draw a graph. A number of people have already seen this graph, and that's okay. It's always good to revisit the graph. Just excuse me here just for a second, and then I'll draw freehand. It will get much quicker. All right, let's talk about the physiology of trauma. We know what happens in a normal regulated system. Someone who lives here with a regulated system, I'll change that to black. Okay, they go along here. They have a distressing event. So what happens? They release stress hormones. The event passes, and this is really important. The system regulates itself. This person goes along doing their thing. They release stress hormones for a stressful event, but the system regulates itself. They go up here, they go up to fight, flight, freeze. There's a life-threatening event. Sorry about my great drawing. It's a bit wonky. They have a life-threatening event. The event passes and this kicks in, the self-regulation. This person's just had a life-threatening event, and within a very short time, their system has down-regulated back to normal. They don't have to go and do a 5-week yoga retreat on top of a mountain somewhere. The system just brilliantly, perfectly brings their whole body, their whole being back to calm, gets rid of the adrenaline from the system, gets rid of the cortisol. This is what happens in a regulated system. What happens for some people, though, is they go into a state of dysregulation. They come up here to fight, flight, freeze with a life-threatening event, and they stay up here. This very important self-regulation switch has been turned off. Why? Because they're stuck. Their whole system is stuck. Why? Their whole system is stuck in fight, flight, freeze because their whole being is screaming, I'm not safe. And what do we want to do? We want to bring them back here with this self-regulation switch back turned on. We want to bring them from a place of I'm not safe to a place of it's over. Now, all the top trauma specialists, Van der Kolk, Levine, say two things have to happen in order to resolve trauma. The person has to be moved to an empowered position in regard to what happened, and the body has to know it's over. I'll go further and say the body and the unconscious has to know it's over. And, excuse me, just get rid of that. I'm safe now. And this is so important. It's over. And I'm safe now. We're going to come back to that very important line in just a moment. So what do we have to do? We have to bring this person from up here back to this self-regulation. From I'm not safe to it's over and I'm safe now. Why, though, does this person feel with everything in their being, why do they feel I'm not safe? Let's talk about the mind. If we say, here's a diagram of the mind. What happens? Let's talk about the actual physiology. What happens in the body when there's trauma? And let's take away the word trauma, because most of us think about war and refugees and torture. But there are some houses, I won't call them homes, that are war zones. What happens when there's, instead of the word trauma, we'll get a much broader view if we take that word away right away and say instead distressing events. So let's look at what happens in the body when there's a distressing event. I'll just stop sharing for a moment. What happens in the body when there's a distressing event? If we were in the classroom, we'd be hands up and we'd be zipping around, but we're not in the classroom, so I'll answer that. We have a distressing event. What happens? The amygdala, the emergency services of the brain, it fires. We release adrenaline and other stress chemicals, stress hormones into the body. And what happens is immediately those systems that we don't need in order to survive, those systems we don't need for fight or flight to survive this event, everything that we don't need is shut down. To conserve energy, the circulation and all energy is sent to the large muscle groups of the arms and legs so that we can fight or flee. First systems that get shut down are the digestion, because we don't have to eat breakfast when we're running from a tiger. The frontal lobe. Our brain takes up 1/3 of our energy. We don't need to do higher maths when we're trying to get away from a wild animal that's trying to kill us. So our frontal lobe is shut down. Our immune system is shut down. We don't have to fight pneumonia when we've only got minutes to save ourselves. Part of this frontal lobe shutdown, part of this brain shutdown, is what can happen is the hippocampus can get shut down as well. The hippocampus is largely responsible for long-term memory. So when an event is over, the hippocampus takes that event, puts it in the right filing cabinet in the warehouse of memory and shuts the door, and that's over. And we get on with whatever the next thing is. This doesn't happen when people get stuck in fight, fright, freeze. So what happens? I'll show you what happens. I'll draw it for you. Here's the mind. Instead of that event, when it's over, being stored in the warehouse of memory and the door shut and that's over, it gets stored in the unconscious, known to some people as the involuntary system, in the unconscious. And it gets stored like a videotape loop. And it's never brought to an end. So as far as the unconscious is concerned, it's happening now, it's happening now, it's happening now. That event when I was 3, and that big one when I was 8, and this big one when I was 14, and this one when I was 22, and all these other little ones that happened along the way. They all get stored in the unconscious like a videotape loop. And the unconscious runs every electrical thing that happens in the body, every chemical reaction. We don't have to think about keeping our heart beating, moving the oxygen from our lungs into our circulation. Thank goodness we don't have to do that. The unconscious runs the body. And if the unconscious thinks that these events are happening now, the body is responding as if they're happening now. That event and that event and that event. For extreme PTSD, what happens is these videotape loops, the big ones, can pop through from the unconscious mind to the conscious mind in the form of flashbacks. A flashback is not a remembered event. A flashback is a relived event as if it's happening now. So you've got the guy walking along the road. He's an ex-soldier, and a helicopter comes over and he dives under a parked car, because to him, he is back in the war, and that helicopter is very, very bad news. So this is what happens. But normally we're not aware that these videotape loops are running in the unconscious, because we're not consciously aware of it. It only breaks through into the conscious mind in extreme PTSD in the form of flashbacks. So going back to the screen, what we have to do to turn off the rage, because that's the question, is how on earth do you take a homicidal bloke and have him and everybody safe in a couple of hours? It's very simple. You simply turn off the top 3 most distressing events in that person's life. Turn off those videotape loops, and it's like a 4-legged table. You take out one leg and the others, then the table can't stand. It all just falls over. So you turn off those top 3 events, and the others just turn off by themselves. And the symptom of rage simply disappears. Let's talk again about the mind. So here's the mind again. Let's talk about the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. It has been proven by science that the conscious mind works about 5% of the day. Some people call this the voluntary system and the involuntary system. The conscious mind being the voluntary, obviously. What most therapies do, what most methodologies do, is try to use this conscious mind that works 5% of the day to control this 95%, which is the unconscious. Cognitive behavior therapies, etc. Cognitive, using the conscious cognitive mind to control what's going on in the unconscious, to control what's going on with all these videotape loops that are going. Well, good luck with that. Because the conscious mind only works around 5% of the day. The unconscious works 24 hours a day and runs our body and runs our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Trauma is not stored in the cognitive mind. Trauma is stored in the unconscious. And yet most therapies deal with trauma by trying to use the conscious mind. It's just not logical. That's not where trauma is. So how on earth can you bring some bloke like Jason, hell-bent on homicide, and have him and everyone safe in just such a short time? It's very simple. You turn off those top 3 most distressing events. The others just turn off by themselves, and the symptom, because it's not anger that's the issue, with the rage of trauma, that lit match at petrol rage, that's not the issue. It's a symptom. It's a symptom of the issue. The issue is that dreadfulness has happened. It has not been stored in the warehouse of long-term memory. Instead, it's been stored in the unconscious. Like a videotape loop, it's happening now, it's happening now, it's happening now, it's happening now, it's happening now. That's the issue. And the other symptoms, the symptoms of rage, the symptoms of anxiety, hypervigilance, you know, I feel like something terrible's about to happen, something bad's about to happen. I don't know why, but something bad's about to happen. Where's the danger coming from? So there's hypervigilance. You can't sleep when that's going on. You got nightmares, your gut doesn't work, you got headaches, your whole body is so tense it hurts all over. These things are just a symptom of dreadfulness that's happened, that's never been stored in the warehouse of memory. It's stored in the unconscious like it's happening now. That thing that happened, and that thing, and that thing, and that thing, and that thing. All we have to do is turn those videotape loops off and the symptoms disappear. So the first question to ask your client who has an anger issue, the first thing to ask is, tell me about your anger. Is it the gradual buildup of frustration, irritation, just getting pissed off, resentment? Does it sort of just build up and then you go off? Or is it different from that? Is it like, you know, when you throw a lit match at petrol and it's just, is it like that? And it happens instantly and you don't see it coming. Which one is it? And if they say, oh, it's the lit match at petrol, I never know when it's coming. Well, then, everyone, you have the rage of trauma and you cannot touch it with anger management. You cannot teach someone who has the rage of trauma, you cannot teach them to be aware, observe. You're starting to get angry, your jaw clenches, your fists clench. And so, you know, that's when you need to step away and do the mindfulness. And that's when you need to, And then you think you've made real headroads. You've made inroads in this session. It's gone well. And they come back the next week and you say, how did you go? Oh, I had a few blow-ups. Well, did you do the techniques I gave you? Did you put those to use? No, I didn't. And what do? We think they're not compliant. They're not wanting to change. They're not doing what we say. We're setting them and ourselves up for failure because there is no way that they can catch this anger before it happens. It just happens and it's an unconscious response, and you cannot control that with the 5% of the conscious mind. In fact, if you've ever experienced this rage of trauma, this lit match at petrol, you will understand, because what happens, and I have experienced it. I experienced it for a couple of decades. What does it feel like? It's just bang, and then you basically go unconscious. And then you come to, and you see the damage you've done, often. And you just think, I'm a monster. And what often happens is that person thinks the best thing I can do for my family, who I love, who are terrified of me, is to just commit suicide, get rid of myself, because I'm dangerous and I love them. It's really a horrible, horrible thing to live with. I used to come to, and there would be my child, and he'd be saying, but I'm only 4, I'm only 4. Don't kill me. What a thing. But it's unconscious. We have no conscious control over it, and no anger management will touch that stuff. We have to go further. We have to go to the cause of the anger. It is not something that can be covered up, patched over, band-aided. We have to go to the cause. We have to go to those videotape loops and turn them off. And it can be done, and it can be done so quickly. And it's not rocket science. It's actually quite simple. I'll tell you a little bit more about Jason. Jason also had a broken neck. He'd broken his neck 4 times. He was tall and skinny. He had hardly any movement in his torso. He had gashes in his head from the guitar. He looked like Frankenstein. He'd been on disability pension for 7 years because of the pain of his neck. By the end of the session, and I know it sounds ridiculous and too freaking good to be true, but I'm going to tell you the whole story and not hold back. By the end of the session, he had full movement of his neck. That was on a Monday. He had no pain. He has not had any pain since. He hasn't even needed Panadol since. That was on a Monday. By Friday, he was back at work, off the disability pension, working as a panel beater, which is a very physical job. So yes, miracles do happen, and they're not really miracles. It's actually quite simple. Because why couldn't he move his neck? Why was he stuck in that loop of terrible pain? Because his unconscious thought, his hippocampus hadn't taken those accidents on motorbikes and put them in the warehouse of memory and shut the door and that's over. Instead, it was that accident and that accident and that accident and that accident stored in his unconscious. I'm in the accident now. I've broken my neck again now. And so what did we do? We turned off those videotape loops and whoa, no pain, full movement. It's actually quite simple and it's very, very logical. So with your clients who come, who are angry, they might be sent to you for anger management, or they might just be a client that you come across who comes to you about a few things. And one of the things they've come about is, I have a temper. I get really angry. Just ask them, is it the slow burn of frustration, irritation, resentment that builds up and then you go off? Or is it like a lit match at petrol, bang, that comes from nowhere? Then, ladies and gentlemen, you will know what you're dealing with. And if you're dealing with the lit match at petrol, it is one thing and one thing only that it can possibly be, and that is the rage of trauma. It's very easy to turn it off. You just turn off those videotape loops. We don't have time today to go into how to do that. And that's not something that I'd ever teach in just an hour, because you have to really know what you're doing. But if you ask this question, at least you can know not to try and do anger management with this person, because there's no way on God's earth that that's going to work. You're setting yourself and that person up for failure. Don't do it. It's easy as that. With these violent, angry men that I used to work with, I have followed most of them for 9 years. And they all have a saying, hurt people hurt people. And they tell their mates, and their mates come. We turn off the videotape loops, and guess what? The rage disappears. And guess what else happens? The anxiety, the depression, the insomnia, the hypervigilance. They can actually, as Bessel van der Kolk and Peter Levine say, two things have to happen in order to resolve trauma. One, move the person to an empowered position in regard to what happened. And two, the body has to know it's over. And I go further, as I said earlier, the body and the unconscious has to know that it's over and I'm safe now. And there is a difference. Let's do a little exercise together. So I'm going to say it's over. And I'm going to say it from the depths of me. And after I say it, you say it. If you're in a situation where you can't say it out loud, just say it inside yourself in your imagination, but say it with all you are. And just observe what happens in your body. Just observe. You ready? I'll say it, then you do. It's over. And just observe what happens in your body. Let's do it again. It's over. And observe, feel. Once more. It's over. Good. And now we're going to do the next bit. I'm going to say it's over and I'm safe now. And once again, you say it yourself and observe and feel what's going on within you. So here we go. You ready? It's over and I'm safe now. Observe. Feel. And once more. It's over. And I'm safe now. Just type in if you felt a difference between it's over and it's over and I'm safe now. And if you can possibly describe it, what was the difference? It's over. And it's over. And I'm safe now. Was there a difference? What was the difference? Peace. Thanks, Betty. Was there a difference between it's over and I'm safe now, Betty? Just a yes or no? A greater sense of calm. Thanks, Marlene. Yes, says Betty, yes. Hard as I'm sat in an office, but relief between them both. Yes, adding, and I'm safe now provided a palpable heightened sense of letting go, of dropping. Lee, that's wonderful. Nat, it's over, different, feel much different. It's over and I'm safe now, felt a drop and a sense of calm, more grounded. It's interesting, isn't it, that there's a difference between it's over and I'm safe now. And if we just examine that, it's over is a very cognitive thing. You know, the Black Saturday bushfires were in 2009. I know it's over and I'm safe now. It's more than a full body, isn't it? It's a full beingness of, as a number of you have said, it's a drop, it's letting go, it's relief, it's resolution, it's over and I'm safe now. And so that's what we do with TRTP. I'll just do another one of my famous drawings here and I'll do it very quickly. So we've got the graph and we've got this one and we've got fight, flight, freeze up here. And we bring this person from I'm not safe because that event that's running like a videotape loop is happening now, and that one, and that one. So my whole being is screaming, I'm not safe. So there is no way that this is going to kick in and bring my system back to calm because it keeps on happening. It's happening all the time. It's happening all the time. And what we do is we take that person from I'm not safe back to here, from up here, I'm not safe, to down here, it's over. And I'm safe now. And how do we do that? We turn off those videotape loops and the symptom of trauma rage or whatever the other symptoms are of, and if someone doesn't have trauma rage, you can, even if they've just got depression, even garden variety depression, isn't it sad that we say that because it's so endemic? Another pandemic of depression, anxiety. If people have those, you turn off the videotape loops. They're the 3 most distressing events in their life. And guess what? No more anxiety, no more depression, no more insomnia, blah, 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 blah. The people that I have taught, I've taught over 500 mental health and health professionals how to do this. And so everything from, you know, a guy with over 100 personalities who said at the end of the second session, the spokesperson for the personality said to the bloke, let's call him Jim, Jim, it's over and we're safe now. And it's over and you're safe now. So you won't be hearing from us anymore. You've got this and it's going to be so good. Thanks for the ride. That was just on 2 years ago. We're waiting the 2 years before we publish that. And so for what's behind nearly all mental ill health, it's dreadfulness that's happened. that's never been stored properly in the warehouse of memory, and it's over. It's happening now. It's happening now. It's happening now. You just turn off those videotape loops, and the symptoms disappear. Rage, trauma rage, anxiety, depression, etc. They just go. And I've spoken for probably long enough, and we'll open it up to questions. When these guys see that graph, they go, "That's me. That's me." So yeah, you're not broken. You're off balance. You're having a normal response to abnormal stresses, and we're going to take those away. So anyway, that's why anger management doesn't work. You cannot manage the rage of trauma. You have to turn it off by turning off the cause, which is the events that have happened that have never been stored properly in the warehouse of long-term memory, and the door closed. Marnie says, is your work similar to EMDR, which also aims to turn off major traumatic events which are still hanging around? No. I'll actually enlarge upon that, Marnie, without just leaving you with no. EMDR can take a lot of the distress out of an event if you've got a good practitioner. And generally, you have to do all different aspects of that event and lots of events in order to get a change in the prognosis, the diagnosis, and the anxiety, the depression, whatever. But you see, when there's an event, there's not just an event of trauma. There's not just a traumatic event. There is a community of trauma around that event. There's the guilt, often, the shame, often, the self-blame, often. What about the people that let that client down at that time? What about the system that let them down? What about the grief? What about the generational trauma that sits behind it all and comes up again? So what TRTP does is it deals with the whole damn lot. It does it quickly and effectively. You only have to work with the top 3 most distressing events, and the others just turn off and the symptoms disappear. So it's much deeper, it's much more comprehensive, and the outcomes are we call them Jesus moments, because people just change in the second session. They change in front of our mind, because it's in front of our face, in front of our eyes, because it's in the second session that we do this. TRTP is a 3-session process. It's in the second session that we turn off those videotape loops. That's why that guy with the 100 personalities, the spokesperson, said it's over and we're safe now at the end of the second session. Maggie said, how do those words get to the unconscious? I think you're talking about it's over and I'm safe now, Maggie. How do those words get to the unconscious? It's very simple. We turn off those videotape loops, and the whole person goes to that place that people have just described here. The work that we do, we work in the unconscious mind, because doesn't it make sense? Trauma is stored in the unconscious. It makes sense to deal with it where it's stored, not in the conscious mind. There's no trauma stuck there. How do you work with the unconscious? It's really simple. You speak to the unconscious in the language of the unconscious. What is the language of the unconscious? We experience it in dreams every night. It's the imagination. When you say 2 words, just imagine, the critical facility steps aside. And the world of the imagination is the world of the unconscious. And the funny thing is that the unconscious and the body believe what we richly imagine. I'll say that again. The unconscious and the body believe what we richly imagine. So if you imagine you've got a wedge of drippy lemon, it's one of those big lemons, they're really juicy. And you're going to suck on that baby, and there's so much juice, and it's so sour. I don't know about you, and your mirror neurons might be mirroring me, but I'm having an extreme saliva response here. My body is behaving as if I really am sucking on that lemon. The body in the unconscious doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and what's real, and we step the client through imaginary scenarios to do two things: step them to an empowered position in regard to what happened, tell the body in the unconscious it's over and I'm safe now. And no, we do not rerun what happened and make it nice. And we do not take the client back to the dreadfulness that happened. They didn't like it the first time. We don't take them there again. Does it work with people with autism who have anger issues? Yes. Mary Lynch is our resident spectrum specialist. Yes, it does. Depending if the person is non-verbal, no. No, if they're non-verbal, no. They have to be verbal and they have to be able to follow instructions easily. And they have to be able, yeah. So more on that another time. Is the propensity for one to compulsively loop current pain stories, painful events related to the client's system's habit of looping the historic events and not relegating to the memory stores, as you mentioned? Let me read that again, Lee. Is the propensity for one to compulsively loop current pain stories, painful events related to the client's habit of, no, it's not a habit. It's not a habit. This idea that we have that the client is ruminating on purpose is a furphy. I am a very disciplined, motivated person, and I just for years refused to even have a thought about what happened to me. My idea was it's over, don't effing go there. I just stopped myself before I swore. But they would come up in my dreams. They would come up as intrusive memories. I did not want them. It's not a habit. It's an unconscious process. Unconscious means it's not run by the conscious mind. And you can, with that 5% of the work which is the work that the conscious mind does, try and control those loops of events, pain stories, etc. You can try and control it like I did. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't work. It's an unconscious process. That was a poor choice of wording. It's a curiosity to more conscious looping. I'm still not sure what you mean. Lee, it's a curiosity. Is that your curiosity or the client's curiosity? It's your curiosity of more conscious looping. It's a funny thing. You can't loop things in the unconscious consciously. I don't know if I'm really answering your question. If you really need that answered, type in yes, please, and I'll give you a call. And you can change the two to just send to me, hosts and panelists, your phone number, and I can give you a call about that. I'm sorry. Yes, please. Okay. Lee, can you go down to where it says 2 and click on that drop box and click on hosts and panelists and write in your phone number? Thank you. And I'll call you tomorrow and we can have a conversation about that, because I'm sorry, I'm just not getting it. Sorry, not getting the question really well. But to have conscious loops, you can't have consciously put loops in the unconscious. So, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll just write that down. Oh, Lisa. I'm supposed to be talking to Lisa on the phone. Lisa. You've got the phone number? Okay, I've got the phone number, Lisa. Excuse me, people. I've got Lisa in my ear on the phone helping me. Marnie, is your work influenced by the work of Stephen Porges and Dan Siegel, that is neurobiology of trauma? I really like the idea of the power of the imagination. No, my work is not influenced by that. I will expand on that a little bit for you, Marnie. I came up with this process before I knew anything about Stephen Porges, Dan Siegel, Peter Levine, Bessel van der Kolk. In fact, the first group that I taught, because at the last minute, some presenter wasn't available and I was asked to stand up and do a presentation, which I did. At the end of that presentation, people were lining up with their credit cards saying, teach me. I said, I don't teach. There was a psychiatrist who came up and was going on about the graph. Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that? What book is that in? That is gold. I said, well, I just made it up. Anyway, this psychiatrist and about 10 other people, some psychologists, etc., were in my first group that I taught. And the psychiatrist came up to me in the first break and said, so what you've done is you've taken the work of Levine and van der Kolk and blah, 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 and you've put it together and taken it a bit further. And I said, can you write down these people? Have they written books? This was in 2014, June 2014. So no, my work has not been influenced by those people. I had never heard of them. That psychiatrist, by the way, was a PTSD specialist, a trauma specialist. And before the end of the 8-week training program of the full TRTP training program, before the end of that, she cleared her books completely. So much so that the receptionists in the medical centre where she worked sent a delegation to ask her, what are you prescribing now? Is it legal? And are we implicated by being on the premises? Because we've been seeing your patients coming for years and years and years, and now they're walking out happy and well. What are you giving them? Is there going to be a drug bust? So, yes, I didn't know about those people. 3 minutes to go. Thank you, Lisa. All right. If a person gets immediately enraged and triggered by a particular other, example, father, but not others, could this be indicative of trauma caused by? Yes, absolutely, Lisa. If someone is only triggered by one person, you need to know what the hell happened and turn off those videotape loops, but you wouldn't do it just with that person. You never work with just one relationship, you work with the entire person, because there'll be more than that shit that's happened to the person. Sorry, I just swore. Anyway, I swear. Get over it. Sorry. The language of trauma is real and raw, and it's a language that I work in all the time. So apologies for that swear word slipping out. Some people earlier were asking, what is the training? The training is an 8-week program for the Richards trauma process. Richards trauma process is a 3-session process, resolves anxiety, depression, PTSD, and anything that's related to trauma, that's trauma caused. And what is trauma caused? All mental ill health and a lot of health, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, lupus. Van der Kolk has linked those things firmly to trauma, and we resolve them every day. So it's an 8-week program. The next one begins in February. If you're interested in further information, we will take steps to give you further information. Just type in interested before you leave. So if you're interested in further information on TRTP and on the training program, just type in interested. Thanks, Marnie. Thank you, Maggie. We'll be in touch. Maggie, Linda, Betty, Gwen, Lisa, Alison. Yep, Karen, we'll be in touch, Karen. And Lee, great. Tamara and Karen and Melissa, great. Okay, we'll be in touch with everybody. Michelle, thank you for typing in interested. Marlene. TRTP training is not for everybody. Just saying. Thanks, Carmel. We'll be in touch. TRTP is not for everybody. We do not accept everybody who applies to join the training. It doesn't matter what someone's high education, how many PhDs they have. We have to see, yes, it's all live online, Maggie. It's all online. Well, not all of it. There's a little bit at the beginning where you learn at your own pace before we do a 3-day workshop with you, but it's live online. Seema, you'd like a phone call? Okay, I'll just write down your phone number, Seema. 4461 644 613 64461. There's one number missing in your phone number, Seema. Can you type it in again, please? Because it's missing a number, I think. 1234 123. Oh no, 616. Okay, no, it's not. I got it. I've just got the wrong glasses on. Sorry. After this webinar finishes, very soon after, in the next half hour or so, you'll receive an email from us with a link so that we don't play phone tag, people, because don't we hate phone tag? So we don't play phone tag. You'll receive a link to a calendar where you can just make an appointment and we'll call you at that time. Okay, Lee. Yep, thanks for that. So you'll receive this email, just click on the link and make a time. And we'll call you at that time for about 20 minutes and give you the information that you need, and we'll take it from there. Alison, yes, it was recorded. Everyone tomorrow will get the link to the recording. It'll be a Dropbox link. And then later after that, it will be up on YouTube on the TRTP YouTube channel. Now there's somewhere you could go if you're interested in further stuff to see what this is all about and to see who's doing it. It's, if you go to YouTube and in the YouTube search box, type TRTP channel, there'll be a picture of me with red glasses on. It's a bit of a trademark. I just like it. It's fun. And go there and have a look at some of the videos there. Lots of love. We must go. Don't want to hold you up for all that you'll have to get going with this evening with meals, etc., families. Thank you so much for investing your time. Thank you so much for investing your energy. Thank you for just chucking yourself into the little exercises I gave you. And I don't know if you've noticed, but what we're using in mental health is not working. The Victorian Royal Commission was summed up by Penny Armitage, the chair of the Royal Commission into the mental health system of Victoria. She said, the mental health system in Victoria has catastrophically failed. That's pretty strong wording, isn't it? And I would say across Australia, in every state and territory, our mental health system has catastrophically failed. We need to use things that are fast and effective and long lasting. And we have a moral obligation to do whatever is required to take our client by the hand to the other side of their pain, impacting not just them, but their families, their kids. So if this draws you, just write in interested. Everyone who's written interested will get in touch with you. And please make it easy for us without phone tag. Just make an appointment with the link you'll get in the next half hour. Lots of love. Have a good evening. Oh, the other thing is I'm doing a workshop on Saturday. It's a 3-hour workshop. We'll also send you a link to that. It's about how do you stop a client from self-sabotaging. So watch out for that email, and perhaps I'll see you face to face, well, on a meeting so I can see your face and we can interact on Saturday, 3-hour, 9 till 12 Queensland time, 10 till 1 New South Wales, Victoria. I'm going to go now. I'll stop talking. Thanks so much. And perhaps we'll meet down the track. Have a great evening. Bye.